What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And UFC Fight Night Allen versus Curtis 2 just took place, and I'm going to be going through the entire card, recapping every single fight, giving my thoughts on the event, and talking about how I went on picks. So yeah, let's get started with the first prelim. Now, this prelim took place at 5 a.m. Where I'm from in Australia, so I obviously am not a retard, so I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. to watch women's MMA, but I got the pick wrong. I picked Melissa Mullins. Everyone picked Melissa Mullins, but I kind of did have a sneaking feeling that she would just be terrible, and odds in women's fights mean nothing. So if you see anyone over a minus 200 in women's MMA, just bet the underdog, because no one should ever be that big of a favorite. But Cornolle won by TKO in the second round. Now, first round, Melissa Mullins had some ground control time. I went back and kind of skimmed through it as they were waiting in between fights. But yeah, Melissa Mullins had some control time in the first. And I obviously, because I didn't watch the whole thing, I can't tell you exactly what happened. But the finishing sequence was pretty cool. They came in and exchanged. Cornolle landed, I think it was a shot to the body, because Mullins kind of hunched over and looked like she was hurt to the body. And then Cornolle kicked her in the fucking head as she was walking away. It was sick. So great finish from Cornolle. And somehow the women's bantamweights got one of the few finishes on the card, so good stuff. But let's move on to the next fight. And the next fight was Cesar Almeida versus Dylan Budka. Now, I also did not watch this one because, again, it was at 5:30 a.m. But I went back and kind of skimmed through it. The general consensus I got from this fight and the memes I saw on Instagram was just Dylan Budka shot a bunch of takedowns. He took him down a couple times in the first. Cesar Almeida's takedown defense was okay, he stuffed a couple. And then in the end, Budka just gassed the fuck out and got tuned up on the feet and TKO'd in the end. He went for a takedown and then he was in on the legs, and Almeida was kind of landing elbows similar to Yuri Prohaska against Alex Pereira, just landing elbows, then he fell back, he went limp, and then the referee let him try and recover, and he couldn't. He shelled up like a bitch because he got tired and, yeah, lost. So, tough one. I got started 0-2, but I did recover from here. So, let's move on to the next fight. Matsumoto versus Dan Argueta. I picked Matsumoto to win by decision, I think was my call. He got it done by submission in the second. Now, I did not go back and rewatch the first, because this is where I ended up waking up. I woke up towards midway through the second round of this fight. So first round, I actually have no idea who won. Hold on, I'm gonna just check that right now. Wait a minute. Apologies, just had to check that real quick. Argueta won the first round. So from watching the fight and what I picked up is that Argueta was just spamming takedowns, shooting a bunch of takedowns, won the first round on all three scorecards. I assume with control time and all that. Let me know if I'm wrong. But then Matsumoto in the later on in the second round, Argueta kept shooting in, and he would sometimes catch him with shots coming in. But then in the end, he ended up in a guillotine, and he tapped Argueta out, and then Argueta tapped and then also went out cold at the same time. So he tapped him out with 5 seconds to go in the second round, similar to Wonderboy versus Shavkat. Very close guillotine compared to rear naked, but similar situation. Submission got finished right at the end of the second round, so good job, Matsumoto, and he remains undefeated. But again, this is now where I actually watched the card, so yeah. Let's move on. Victor Hugo versus Pedro Falcao, or something like that, I think his name is. Victor Hugo won a decision on all three scorecards, 30-27 on two judges, 29-28 on one. This was another similar situation in terms of one guy shooting a whole bunch of takedowns, but Victor Hugo remained composed on the feet. He was landing some good shots. There was no crazy big knockdowns or anything like that in the fight. It was pretty consistent pace the whole way through. The first three fights were all finishes. This was the first decision on the card, and this kind of slowed down the pacing for a little bit, but it picked up on the main card. But yeah, Hugo just did better on the feet. He was more composed. Falcao got a couple takedowns at times, but yeah, I didn't pay heaps of attention. It wasn't the most crazy fight. Hugo looks solid. He was booked against Alatang Haley. You could just rebook that, but yeah, good job. And Falcao came in on 4 days' notice, made weight, unlike some people, and not the win, but had a solid performance, so fair play to him. Let's move on, though, to the next fight. Dumont versus Randamie. This was a fucking terrible fight. Dumont won 29-28, I think, or 30-27, whatever it was. I think it was 29-28. She won the first and the third round because she just had control time. The first and third round, in those 2 rounds, she landed a total of like 4 significant strikes. But it was all control time. And in women's MMA, you have to actually do a bunch of damage to overtake control time, because they'll just see someone laying on you and they'll be like, oh, yep, winning. And they won't even realize that they've done absolutely nothing with it. So yeah, good job, Norma Dumont. Randamie looked okay on the feet at moments, but she just couldn't stuff the takedowns, couldn't get back up. And yeah, lost on control time. Let's move on though to the next fight. Walter Walker versus Lucas Brzeski. This one was terrible. Yeah, I regret watching this fight completely. Walter Walker won. He lost the fight 29-28 on all 3 scorecards. And it was weird, because if you know what, I'm not going to call this a robbery at all, because I do think on damage, Brzeski definitely won. But you kind of got that feeling watching the fight, like they're probably going to give this to Walker just because, again, heavyweights, someone just gets a bunch of control time and they kind of just forget about any other little strikes that landed. So even though Walker did nothing and he was gassed, so maybe that was the optics. I assume the judges gave him round 1 and then they gave Brzeski round 2 and 3. Definitely round 2 was Brzeski, who was tuning him up on the feet. And then round 3, Walker was gassed, but kind of like any time he shot, he was just big enough to sort of just topple Brzeski to the ground. And so he did get him down, but he was so gassed, he couldn't really consolidate position. He kind of just had his head on the outside of the lat and was just kind of holding it there and doing nothing. He did get mount at one point and even got the back, and then in round 3. So I was like, okay, he's winning this. He's going to win round 3. He sucks. He's terrible. I'm never going to pick him again, but at least he can get me my pick right. But then he somehow managed to lose the back. So good job. And then he got mounted and punched a bunch of times. And so, yeah, he did definitely, I would say, good argument that he lost the fight. But Johnny Walker's brother, not living up to any hype that could have existed. He got smoked. Well, not smoked, but he got embarrassed. You match him up with Shamil Gaziev, that's the next fight to make. Let's move on, though, to the next fight. Alex Morono versus Court McGee. Now, I picked Alex Morono to win this fight by decision, I believe was my call. Maybe I went TKO, I don't know. But he did rock Court McGee in the first. I think on the scorecards it was 30-27. I think there might have been a 29-28 in there. But yeah, I thought he won the first and third pretty clearly. Second I would have given to him, but it's debatable. But yeah, first round he rocked Court McGee. He was just way quicker on the feet. Court McGee's an old man. He's geriatric and doesn't know how to strike. Morono had a guillotine at one point, which looked kind of in, and then third round, again, whole lot of nothing, whole lot of NPC. Morono literally looks like the biggest NPC in fighting. His nickname is the Great White, so you'd really hope that he had, wish we could give that nickname to, Trevor Peake or something, or, Sergey Pavlovich or something. Come on, why are we giving it to the most bum-ass personality, Alex Morono? That's a cool nickname. That. I mean, it's kind of weird, but it's funny. It has potential for memes. Imagine if Drew Dober was nicknamed the Great White. Come on. You can't tell me people wouldn't absolutely have a field day with that. But that's the only good thing about Morono. Apart from that, he's boring as shit. He just does a whole lot of nothing, whole lot of pitter-pat, as Lucas Tracy would say, and he got the win, so fair play. But the prelims were pretty dismal. I started 4-3, because prelims, I went 0-2 to start, and then I got Matsumoto, I got Hugo, I got Dumont, and then I got Walker wrong, and then I got this one right. So I started 4-3, and apart from 3 finishes early on in the prelims, the next 4 fights were decisions, and it really slowed down the pacing. But we move on to the main card, where the pacing really did pick up. Trevor Peake versus Charlie Campbell. 15 minutes of pure retardation. Great stuff. Look, this fight somehow didn't get... Oh, not even somehow, because I thought main event would have, because normally if it's a good main event, they give the main event fight of the night. But this didn't even get fight of the night over the main event. There was another fight, which I'll talk about in a second. But somehow in 3 fights, Peake's got a reputation, or in 4 UFC fights, even though he's got a reputation of just being one of the most fun guys on the roster, he technically has 0 fight of the nights. That's a fact. So that's all I'm going to say. It's weird to think, but somehow he's getting outdone every time he has a fun scrap. He did get dominated most of the time. Charlie Campbell won 30-27 on all 3 scorecards. He was chewing up the legs, kicking Trevor Peake a bunch, landing really good combos, teeing off on him a whole lot, took his back a bunch of times in the fight, got ground control time. Trevor Peake had his moments, but it was few and far in between. It wasn't, like, he kind of looked like he rocked him a little bit. Charlie Campbell looked a bit tired in the third, and it looked like Peake might get something going, but he just wasn't able to really swing the momentum and impose his will, Couldn't impose his will, Trevor Peake. So good win, Charlie Campbell, and yeah, good stuff. He's a fun fighter as well. They're both really fun fighters, so keep him around for sure. Keep Trevor Peake around, no matter how many losses he gets. I mean, he's only 2-2 in his UFC career, so it's not that bad. But I don't care if this man's on a 5-fight loss streak. You keep him in there, and you chuck him in there against fucking anyone, and he'll make it fun. He'll find a way to make even the most boring fighters fun. So yeah, good stuff, Trevor Peake. Good stuff, Campbell. Let's move on to the next fight. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Giagos. I picked Bahamondes to win by KO, and he got it done by KO. And if you look on my Instagram, I actually picked head kick. I said round 2, so whatever. But I picked head kick KO for Ignacio Bahamondes. Called that shit easy. Yeah, he hit a fucking spinning wheel kick on Giagos, hit a spinning back kick, and then Giagos was a bit hurt, and then he got him again with a head kick and just not like flatline KO'd him, which would have been sick if he did, but he kind of just dropped him bad, and Giagos was hurt, didn't want to continue, ref stepped in. So it was technically a walk-off KO, one shot, no ground and pound afterwards, but it would have been sick if he went just out cold. The visuals would have been a lot cooler, because this one was like, he hit him with it, and he hurt, and he kind of staggered down to the ground. So fair play, good job to Bahamondes. I knew he was going to win. He's too rangy, he's too long, he's too dynamic. Giagos is shit. He's only beaten shit opponents. And yeah, Bahamondes got it done. I assume he got a performance of the night bonus. I'd be shocked if he didn't. But let's move on to another fight. Morgan Charriere versus Chep Mariscal. I picked Charriere to win, and I stand by my pick because I think he did win the first 2 rounds easily. Definitely won the second, no doubt about that. That was the clearest round of the fight. And then the first round, I believe he won. Chepe had moments where he was just swinging, but if you fucking watch it, none of them were landing. He was just swinging like a tard. Constant pressure and running at your opponent means nothing if you don't actually land damage. His eyes were swollen up at the end of the first round. Charriere clearly won on damage. He cut him open as well, I'm pretty sure, under the eye or on the nose or something like that. I think Charriere clearly won the first 2. I'm not going to say like brutal robbery, but in my opinion, it was a very clear fight to score. Even Charriere in the third round was having moments. He did, again, even in the third round, Chepe was swinging. He landed like 2 shots, but they're acting like, oh, big combination here, Charriere might be hurt. He was not hurt at all. He was just up against the fence, slipping punches. Chepe was swinging like a tard, and then Charriere was so with it, he just ducked in and got a sick takedown. But then at the end of the third, about a minute of control time with some punches from Chepe. So I'm definitely good with giving him the third. One judge scored at 30-27. This was weird because we had a night of 2 scorecards in a row, the next fight as well, where the loser got a 30-27 scorecard, and the other 2 scorecards were 29-28 for the person that got the win. Even though the 30-27 for the next fight was awful, but this one, I didn't hate it. Like, there was an argument you could give it 30-27, but I would have said just because of that last minute in the third, Chepe wins the third. But first round, I swear to God, I haven't had time to rewatch it because I wanted to get this video out, but in my opinion, very comfortably, Charriere did better. He was, like, tuning him up. He was composed. He was at range. And, yeah, again, charging forward like a spastic. It looks good to the judges, but you're not landing. Chepe was not landing. Like, I swear to God, Charriere was slipping all the shots. He was tuning him up. Any clean punches that were actually landing were all from Charriere, so I gave it to him. I got the pick wrong officially, but whatever. We move on to the co-main event. Damon Jackson versus Alexander Hernandez. I got the underdog, boys. I picked the underdog. I picked Damon Jackson by decision, and he got it done by 29-28 decision. Don't know what that judge was smoking that gave it 30-27 to Hernandez. That was retardation. First and second round, Jackson was just like, it was close, but Hernandez didn't land any big shots. There was no moment in the first or second where Jackson got rocked. Not saying there was where Hernandez got rocked either, but he was landing effective calf kicks. He cut Hernandez open. He bloodied up his nose in the second. And then in the first and second round, he got takedowns and control time at the end of the first and second. So even if it was literally a 50-50 fight, because I don't think there's any way you can confidently say Hernandez was ahead before the takedowns. And then first and second round, Jackson got takedowns. So I think it was pretty clearly for Jackson. Third round, he got dropped, and I was so fucking annoyed because I was like, let's go. because I had all the same picks apart from this one with MMA Guru, because I had another fight, but that's the one that fell off the card. But yeah, all my picks except for this one were different, and I picked Jackson as an underdog, and I was like, let's go, he's up 2-0, and McGee was coping, and then he drops him in the third. I was like, come on, no way you're going to get finished here, because my impression going into this fight was, if Jackson doesn't get knocked out in the first, he's going to win. I thought he was going to win the last two. I thought Hernandez would just be pressing him against the cage a bunch and landing big shots against the cage, and he would survive a first and then take over late. But he won the first two and then lost the third because he did get dropped. But fair play, good win from and even in the second he clearly won. He was going for rear naked choke attempts, easily, punching him while on the back standing. How the fuck do you not give that round to Jackson? So 29-28 Hernandez is wrong. 30-27 Hernandez is atrocious. But whatever. We move on to the main event. Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis 2. It was a split decision win for Brendan Allen. 49-46, 48-47, 47-48 on the other side. Good win. Scrappy fight. Interesting stuff. Some low IQ moments from both of them, I'll be honest. So, breakdown of the scoring-wise first. Brendan Allen won the first round. Undoubtedly clear. No debate for that. He took the back. He was landing good shots on the feet. Curtis didn't land really anything that effective. Second round was the clearest round for Curtis. So I think the first two rounds were the easiest to score. I think there was no debate, no doubt. You score the first two, the first for Allen, second for Curtis. He was landing great shots, and he was looking pretty effective. Third round, very close. I gave it to Curtis. Both were landing good. I think Allen actually got rocked, but then he ended up taking the back of Curtis. So forgive me if I'm wrong here. Maybe I've got the rounds mixed up. But from memory, Curtis rocked Allen in the third, and then Allen actually took the back and got some control time. So I would have given it to Curtis. I think two of them did. One judge scored it 49-46 for Allen, and he gave that third round. Sorry, I just burped. He gave that third round, obviously, to Allen, which I don't hate it, but it's close-ish. Fourth round, I personally gave to Allen. I think he did enough with the grappling. I think he even on the feet was doing all right. This was one of the rounds where he wasn't getting cracked on the feet. So I had it 2-2 going into the fifth. I had 1 and 4 for Allen, 2 and 3 for Curtis, and then fifth round was Curtis's up until the last 20 seconds because Allen was gassed. He was failing most of his takedowns. Look, Curtis wasn't shooting him up on the feet, but Allen would shoot. He would get stuffed. He would miss the takedown, and then Curtis would just be on top of him, not even in guard. Allen would just be in the Mackay, in the Dagestani position. You know what I'm talking about, when those motherfuckers fail takedowns and they've just got their fucking head in your crotch, just on their knees like a little bitch, because they failed their 19th takedown of the fight. So Allen was on his knees in front of Curtis, and then Curtis was just pressing his head down, punching him into the body, punching him into the head. And then at one point, Allen, instead of trying to work his way back up with energy and stand up to the feet, dropped back down into guard because he didn't want to keep getting punched from there. So that, to me, I'm like, yeah, this guy's breaking. This is clearly a Curtis round. But end of the round, Allen shoots a really good takedown. This is with 30 seconds ago. Allen shoots a great takedown. Was getting around to the back, but then messes up. Curtis gets up, but he does his leg. You could tell something tweaked in his leg, and then with 10 seconds to go, he backs up to the cage, does not throw anything back, and just lets Brendan Allen tee off on him at the end of the fifth round, and that steals it. Because I looked at the scorecard, every judge scored that last round for Brendan Allen. So even the split round, I don't think, or maybe I'm wrong there, maybe one scored it, maybe the judge that scored it for Curtis, but two of the judges, at least, scored that fifth for Brendan Allen, and I think based off just those last 10 seconds, because before that, he was just shooting a bunch of takedowns and had a little bit of control time, but Curtis was doing all the damage. Curtis had him in the bad positions. So I would have given it to Curtis up until that last 10 seconds if only he hadn't either tweaked his knee or in that moment just got to hold on for 10 more seconds. Just don't let him tee off on you, and you probably could have won that fight. but Allen gets the decision. I was really thinking, because in that second and third, it really seemed like the momentum was going Curtis's way, and I was like, no way, Chris Midas is about to fucking beat the number 6 ranked guy. Is this how shit middleweight is, that Chris Curtis is about to be a number 6 ranked middleweight? But Allen came through in the end, because I was thinking, I was like, what, this guy's getting tuned up by a Mavov, fucking lost to Kelvin Gastelum, literally lost to fucking Jack Hamidson. This guy loses to anyone good, gets tuned up, and he's about to beat Brendan Allen because he was rocking him, and he had him hurt with a knee in a big punching combination, I think in the third or second, I forget. But he had him hurt in those middle rounds, and I was like, no way, Chris Midas is about to fucking become a top 5, almost top 5 middleweight. He's shit. But, yeah, in the end, Brendan Allen got it done by decision. He looked kind of mid. I think they'll probably just rebook the Vettori fight. I wouldn't mind if they did Strickland's, just because Strickland doesn't have a fight, and it's looking like Cannonier's fighting a Mavov. That's what I'm hearing. Obviously, Whitaker's fighting Hamzat. That they're pretty much saying Drickus is fighting Izzy. So that leaves Strickland, Vettori, and now Allen as the top guys without a fight booked, because Dolidze's fighting Hernandez as well. So yeah, I think you could either do Allen versus Vettori, rebook that, just because if they actually are trying to get behind Allen, and I don't think they're overly pushing him, because if the UFC really wanted to push him, they wouldn't have done Curtis. They would have given him a top guy, or held him out and given him a top guy, or they wouldn't have made him literally get 6 wins in a row or 7 wins in a row to become a top 5 guy. If they were really pushing him, they would do the Strickland rematch. If they're not too pushing him and they're not too high on him, they'll probably do Vettori. So it's either that, it's Strickland or Vettori, but that was the card. So let me think back. So main event I got right, so 1 out of 1. Co-main I got right, 2 out of 2. Chepe fight I thought was a robbery, but it lost 2-1. I got Bahamondes 3-1. I got Campbell 4-1. I got Morono 5-1. I lost with Walker 5-2. I got Dumont 6-2. I got Matsumoto, and I got Hugo, so that's 8-2. And then I got the first 2 fights wrong. So 8-4 on the card. Not too bad. And given that 2 of those were the first 2 fights. So got 1 fight wrong on the main card. Could have been 9-3 if the decision had gone the way I thought it should have with Chepe and Charriere. But whatever. It was a solid card. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next one. We're going to be talking about John Jones. So you know that's going to be a great video. Peace out.